we find ourselves over and over again in life and in real estate running into these moments where we have to grow our skill sets, or the embarrassing moment that I've had, I can't even count as many times, the skill sets or the mindsets that I've abandoned, and now I'm suffering the consequences of it.
I had to first choose to push forward through some of the negative mindset that I had reinforced over the last year.
Real estate professionals, welcome back to the RMG Agent Podcast. I'm your host, Reed Moore, here with my co-host, Jake Bartlett, and we are excited because this is the wrap-up of our season 2. We are now 70 episodes in. Really, really stoked. I want to just say thank you so much. We have over 4,000 downloads now on our podcast and over 19,000 impressions on our shorts and everything like that. So thank you so much for sharing, for liking, subscribing, and helping us drive value to you guys. As always, 2 things. 1, go to rmgagentpodcast.com for all of the goodies, all of our action guides, as well as our business planning webinar and the rest of the resources. Love to have you over there. Give us feedback on what you find there so we can always make it better. Secondly, as always, something that we are passionate about is the product Area Pro. And if you go to areapro.com/RMG, you're going to find a product that we think every real estate professional should have. With all that, Jake, what's the title of our episode today?
Well, before I tell you the title of our episode, go back and check out last week's episode,
yes.
The Listing Trilogy, Connect, Qualify, and Secure. That was a great episode. And today we have flipped roles slightly here.
Yeah.
And we are doing Easy to Say, Hard to Do, which is our season 2 wrap up.
Yes.
So what are we talking about?
All right. So we've spent the last couple years now, the last couple seasons, just really doing our best to be able to just drive value to real estate agents. And we've been talking about models, and we just recently worked through a whole series on how to do scripting and role playing. But then to end the season, we were talking, and we want to zoom out because the reality is all the things that we talk about on this podcast, they say easy and they do hard. Or another way of saying that, it's easy to say, hard to do.
Yep.
And we're in this industry, and we show up every day, and we have to do the heavy lifting of real estate, and specifically you're slinging properties, right? That's the gig. So in this last year, walk us through, what was your experience selling real estate and working through these models?
Yeah, so the last year was, we had some things go on and work and some changes in roles and things like that. And it was really hard. Yeah. It was really hard. And I, woke up kind of some point in December and it was not okay. Things were not, I was not in a good place as far as where I needed to be. Yeah. And had to, talk to my wife, who's amazing and so loving and understanding to, it's not easy. And if you're not working on the right things, you're not pushing and thinking about it, it can catch up to you. And in that moment, it feels a little like quicksand.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Right? So we had a conversation in December, and fortunately I have people in my life that are, awesome and helpful and great coaches in their own mind and in their own right, and helped me kind of start to turn the ship around, help me out of the quicksand so that I could start focusing on the right things.
Yeah. Well, I love you sharing that because I think, and just as we're reflecting on this and reflecting on these last couple seasons, there's this feeling of when you're teaching these things that it's it's sometimes it's easy to teach stuff. But the reason that we talk about these things is because they're actually hard. If they weren't hard and everybody just easily got it, and if we even easily applied this in our life, that honestly, it wouldn't even be worth talking about, right? But we find ourselves over and over again in life and in real estate running into these moments where we have to grow our skill sets, or the embarrassing moment that I've had, I can't even count as many times, the skill sets or the mindsets that I've abandoned, and now I'm suffering the consequences of it, right? So you wake up and you have that moment of, I'm not okay, right? Where did your head go when it comes to what I need to do to change this?
Well, I know that through our conversation was like, hey, we have created these tools to help other agents. Why don't you go back and start listening to some of the things that we were talking about and go from there? And it was, I went back to episode 1 was the first, I just started at the beginning, and I through that really realized like the core foundations of that we had talked about, I had really gotten out of whack on.
Got it. So what was the model that like when you went back and said, all right, like, you worked through the emotions of like having to start over with some of these areas, which we all experience that. Where did you go first?
I want to give it a better title, like some grandiose title, but it's really the big 3 things that you can control: your mindset, your effort, and your skill set. So I went back to mindset was really the first thing.
Got it. Okay, so you go back and you revisit mindset, and what was that like? Like saying like, okay, I'm not okay, and now I need to wrestle with my mindset. What did you do?
Yeah, I had to first like choose to push forward through some of the negative mindset that I had reinforced over the last year. Yeah. So that was a daily choice of showing up and knowing the things that were needed to be done with, my mindset on a daily basis.
Yeah. It's interesting just thinking about mindset and how powerful it is, right? Which we talk about all the time. And again, easy to say, hard to do. But there's this feeling when I've experienced times where my mindset has been just crappy or funky, sometimes for a prolonged period of time, that you get to a place to where there's a level of shame or embarrassment around that. Like, seriously, same thing like when I've gained weight in the past, right? Like all of a sudden I look in the mirror, I'm like, hey, that's not the guy I am, right? And you realize, oh, right, somewhere along the line I did this. And the only way back to being in a great place is back through all this stuff that I don't feel like I should have to do again. Like that's how it works for me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You said something a few weeks back when we were talking about scripting or making phone calls and lead generating, and you said the phrase that you hear like the first time you ever hear about lead generating is they're happy, they're home, and they want to take my call, right?
Yeah.
It was like, oh yeah, like I remember that, like they are happy, they are home, and they are going to take my phone call, right? Like even just a simple trick that we're taught when we first start, like you forget it so easily, and it has big power over like that next phone call you're going to make.
It does, yeah. So what's been the most helpful thing for you in re-engaging, like this is the mindset that I choose to have?
I just focusing on the day, like each day, and focusing on I do have the choice. And you say it to your kids, right? Like attitude's a choice, right?
Yeah.
My mindset is a choice today.
Got it. So what if you don't feel that day like that's a choice you want to make?
It doesn't matter.
It's irrelevant.
Yeah, the great Keith Riddle. No, not Keith Riddle. Brent Hansen.
Yeah, irrelevant.
Irrelevant. Yeah, it's irrelevant. You get to choose that today.
So because we're talking to hundreds of agents right now, and out of those hundreds of agents, there are hundreds that are having issues with mindset, what would be your advice from the trenches of like, what's the next step?
You're not alone. Find somebody that cares about you, that can help you through it, and talk to them about it. And, you get a choice, and this is a career, and these are small moments in that career.
Yeah.
That, ultimately what you do in these moments will be kind of the defining moment for your career.
Yeah. I love that. And I love, we're so passionate about being a part of a tribe and being interdependent with other people. And I love that, right? Because it's, when I find myself in a bad spot and I find myself isolated, I'm actually in a really bad spot, right? If I find myself in a bad spot and I'm running with 3, 4, 5 other people, there's a good chance that 2 or 3 of them are not in a bad spot, right? And that means that they're going to be the person at that time that's going to help me get my head on right. And then I'm going to do that for them, right? It's a powerful way to honestly just continue to advance your career and your life in a real practical way.
Yeah. Yep, I would agree with that.
So, okay, so you wrestle with mindset, and now we have the big E, right? We have effort. So, what is it? Well, talk to me about effort.
Yeah, effort. Jared on our team, Bjorkestrand, said something that I equate to effort. He said, lead generation doesn't care whether or not you like it. It cares whether or not you do it. And that's really what it comes down to is effort. Like, it doesn't matter that day whether or not you want to put forth the effort. Like, you just have to do it.
Yeah.
And move forward into like get it done and then get on to what else you have to do.
Yeah. What did you, okay, so and we end up shifting back and forth obviously because mindset shows up as mindset, but it also shows up in my mindset around effort, right? How do you work through after, when you're a seasoned veteran like you are, what do you do to work through the mindset of like the way it showed up in my life is entitlement? Like I shouldn't have to blank. Like,
right.
What do you do?
Yeah. I think it's the constant choice that next phone call until you make it doesn't really matter how long you've been doing this for.
Yeah. It's just,
right. Mm-hmm. Like when you're sitting in front of your phone and getting ready to make the next phone call or knock the next door or do your next open house or call the past client, it doesn't really matter what you've done in the past.
Yeah.
You still have to do the next thing.
Yeah, it reminds me of, like a meme you would see, right? Like, you can't own success. It's rinse due every day, those kind of things. And like, you see those like, that's neat. But, at some point, it's like you realize the effort that's required is going to be the effort that's required. And it is what it is, right? And now you have to make peace with it. And if those are foundational or fundamental things, or even you could call them basic, which we don't want to hear, right? Because it feels beneath us.
Yeah.
It is what it is, right? Our friend Chase Williams calls it blocking and tackling, right? How do you win a game? Blocking and tackling.
Yeah.
Right.
Games are won in the trenches.
Yeah. Same thing.
So one of the things that I did, and this has never been something I've done in the past, I'm a big movie quote person. Like I'll quote movies all the time. But for some reason I looked up like motivational quotes and was like just started reading through them and finding something that resonated for that day. So one that I found the other day was a Joe Rogan quote, which talked about like you think you're in a tough moment in that time, and I'm not going to quote the exact quote, but he equates the tough time with trees lose all of their leaves every single year, and they have to stand tall through the winter, the coldest time, with no protection.
Yeah,
and sometimes that's where like. That's what you're left with is like, it's a really hard time and you get to stand tall.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things now I'm thinking about kind of going back to mindset that I got the opportunity to watch you do is to engage in intentionally feeding your mindset, right? When you woke up and you said, hey, I'm not okay. Now it's like, and I'm listening to podcasts and I'm reading books and I'm filling my mind with things that are the opposite of the way I feel, right? And just to see the progress of what that looks like to chip away at a mindset that started to erode, and then now all of a sudden you're building a retaining wall, right? Not just to get back to where you were, but to like just set the foundation for the future, right? Pretty cool to watch, right? Hard to go through.
Hard to go through. Still going through, like, it's still a daily choice. It's getting easier. But yeah, like we've talked a lot about like people in your life and who's, we have, or you have a model that we use in our company a lot, which is the question triangle, right? Yeah. The who you want to become and the who you surround yourself with. And in the season that I'm going through, like the who I surround myself with is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just like being lonely sucks. It just does, because life gets hard for everybody. And when you find it hard, if you find it hard and lonely, again, we've said that it's extra hard, right? Maybe permanently, right? Like there's things that get so hard in life sometimes that they leave pretty deep wounds if you're not surrounded, right?
Right.
So, okay, so we work through mindset, we work through effort, and now we go to skill set, right? So what are you learning and what have you learned around skill set?
Yeah, so we equated to skill set as like toolbox in the past, right? Like you put all these tools in the toolbox. I guess I've learned that how fast some of those tools become irrelevant and how fast the industry is moving, that if you're not constantly putting new tools in the toolbox, like you end up with less tools than you think. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you have a whole toolbox of tools that don't work anymore. And that can even happen seasonally.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, so I equated when we were discussing this as, if you're a tool rep, that's what you do. You sell tools. Like, that's great. And your company is constantly reinventing the tools that they already created.
Yeah.
And what you sold this year may no longer be relevant next year.
Right.
Right? So, and a prime example of that is like, for a long period of my career, short sales and foreclosures were something that was around, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And I have a whole bunch of skills in short sales and foreclosures. What haven't we had for 6 years, 7 years?
Right.
An abundance of short sales and foreclosures. Yes, if those come back, like I will be well equipped in that market where everybody else will have to learn them.
Sure.
But when they're not around and the market has changed, right now that tool is irrelevant.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking too about, there's the what tools do I have, and then am I sharpening the saw? Am I working on that, right? And it's one of those things going back to the series that we just finished around scripting and role playing. It's what are the relevant tools today? And then how sharp am I on those tools? And even just this morning, right, we're standing around and we're like, hey, I want to work on this script. I want to work on this one. I want to work on this one. And all three of us, when we're going around this little script group, was like, hey, I got to work on that thing. And there's feedback. And it's like, okay, I missed that. And man, that would have made that more effective. And again, just going back to who do you have in your life, right, that's helping you work through your mindset, your effort, and your skill set.
Yeah. And I think what I'd like to hit on that is like the mindset of growth allows you to take the constructive criticism from those that care about you and care about your success as a positive and not a negative.
Yeah.
And so the mindset of choosing to grow and get better on a daily basis is a big portion of getting better in those things.
Yes, absolutely. I really appreciate you just being open and vulnerable about this because, again, like we're here to impact, empower, and encourage people. And there's just something so impactful about somebody like hearing like, oh, like you're human, like, oh, like you have to walk through these same things, right? And just the fact that you're doing that. And by the way, to your credit, not only have you re-engaged and working on it, but if you look over the last many weeks, the conversations you've had, the appointments you set, like you're on a tear and you're killing it. But to watch you go through the heavy lifting of getting to that place where it's like, oh crap, now you're killing it. It's a heavy lift, and your willingness to do it and to model that is a huge deal, and I think a great way to close up our second season.
Yeah, it's kind of like what's the saying? It's like riding a bike, right? When you get back to an activity, or real estate career, like I'm getting back to, it's not like riding a bike. You don't just jump on the bike. Like the bike's broken.
Yeah.
It's completely pulled apart. It's missing pieces. Like you got to work through all the crap, find the missing pieces, order them on Amazon. You got to, call the buddy that knows how to work on the chain. You got to put the pump up the tires with a different buddy. And now the bike's ready to start riding, and you got to go forward from there.
Yeah, I love it, man. And I just want to say thank you for like a phenomenal wrap up, right? Because all of these things that we're doing, they genuinely are tools, and they're genuinely mindset models and things that we believe cause agents to be successful. Not when things are easy, but when things are hard, because the last couple of years have been hard, and that's when these things really come into effect, right? Again, like we don't talk about these things because they're easy. We talk about them because they're hard and they're useful and they're important.
Yeah. And I'll add out there, like, if you're in a position like I was, like, you're not alone.
Yeah. Reach out.
Reach out. Find somebody. Like, I'd love to talk to you. Like,
yeah.
Go from there.
That's what we're here for.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, guys. That's season 2 wrap up. We're going to be coming back to you with some master series and then rolling into season 3. So thanks again for joining us. As always, we're here to impact, empower, and encourage you in your real estate career and your real life. Take care, everybody.
All right, guys. See ya.